It started with a simple act. Sarah tried to send a photo of her latte to her sister. The cafe was bustling, sunlight streaming through the windows, and the aroma of fresh coffee filled the air. She framed the perfect shot, ready to share a small moment of her Saturday afternoon, but as she tapped the send button, her phone hesitated. The familiar whoosh of a sent message never came. Instead, her screen flashed 3 stark letters, SOS, where the signal bars should be. It was as if her phone was calling for help too. Confused, Sarah toggled airplane mode, hoping a quick reset would fix things. She restarted her phone, checked her settings, even moved closer to the window. But nothing worked. The SOS symbol remained, stubborn and unblinking. Around her, others in the coffee shop were having the same problem. People glanced at their screens, exchanged puzzled looks, and tried to connect to the Wi-Fi. It quickly became clear. This wasn't just Sarah's issue. Verizon was down, and no one knew why. Across the country, millions suddenly found themselves cut off. Phones that had been lifelines to friends, family, and work were now reduced to emergency-only devices. The digital world, so often taken for granted, had gone eerily silent. Calls failed before they could connect. Texts vanished into the void, never to be delivered. A strange, unsettling digital silence settled over neighborhoods, cities, and towns. People stepped outside, searching for a signal, but found only the quiet hum of a disconnected world. For a few hours on August 30th, 2025, a software glitch silenced a nation. The outage forced an unplanned digital detox, leaving people to sit with their thoughts, notice their surroundings, and rediscover the art of waiting. The outage quickly became national news, with headlines flashing across TV screens and laptops. Urgent questions filled the air. What happened? Who was affected? When would it end? Experts speculated, but answers were slow to come. The event exposed just how deeply our lives are woven into invisible networks. The cell towers, cables, and servers that keep us connected are often overlooked, until they fail. In a matter of minutes, the fabric of our digital lives began to unravel. What began as a personal inconvenience for Sarah snowballed into a collective experience of isolation. Strangers shared glances of frustration, united by a sudden sense of vulnerability and disconnection. The smooth connectivity we expect was abruptly snatched away, replaced by uncertainty and frustration. People realized how much they relied on their devices, not just for entertainment, but for safety, work, and peace of mind. One SOS screen at a time, the country realized how essential these networks have become. The outage was a wake-up call, a reminder that our digital lifelines are fragile. The silence was more than the absence of notifications. It was a pause, a moment to reflect on our digital dependence, and a question: what would we do if the silence lasted longer? The outage crept in quietly, almost unnoticed at first, like a shadow stretching across the city. People started their mornings as usual, scrolling through news feeds and checking messages, unaware that something was about to go very wrong. Then, suddenly, everything changed. The silence of lost connection exploded into confusion and frustration. By early afternoon, downdetector's charts spiked dramatically, showing over 10,000 reports of service failures pouring in from across the country. An unmistakable sign that this was no ordinary hiccup. Just an hour later, that number more than doubled, surging to 23,000. The scale of the problem was growing by the minute, and people everywhere were left staring at their screens, hoping for a fix. This was no local glitch. It was a nationwide event, catching millions off guard. From bustling cities to quiet suburbs, the outage rippled outward, disrupting daily routines and leaving people disconnected from work, family, and friends. The outage map glowed with alarming red and orange zones, each one representing thousands of people suddenly cut off from the digital world. It was a visual reminder of just how interconnected and vulnerable our networks have become. Even 3 hours in, over 22,000 reports remained. This wasn't a quick fix or a minor inconvenience. It was a persistent, widespread disruption that left businesses scrambling and families unable to reach each other. Verizon engineers faced a stubborn, complex problem deep within the network's core. Teams worked around the clock, analyzing data and searching for the root cause, but the solution remained elusive. Customers endured hours of uncertainty, unable to coordinate plans, check in on loved ones, or even order food. The outage exposed just how much we rely on constant connectivity for even the simplest tasks. As evening approached, reports slowly dropped, but more than 18,000 people were still affected. For many, the hope of a quick resolution faded as the sun set, and the reality of a disconnected day set in. For countless individuals, the disruption consumed the day, turning ordinary routines into a series of frustrating dead ends and missed opportunities. The timeline revealed the fragility of our communication systems, exposing how a single point of failure can ripple across an entire nation in a matter of hours. A single software issue, buried deep in the infrastructure, had a cascading national effect, reminding us that even the most advanced technology is not immune to failure. The day's events were a stark reminder. Our digital world is more fragile than we think, and the connections we depend on can vanish in an instant, leaving us to navigate a suddenly silent world. The blackout struck hardest in America's busiest corridors, where the pulse of daily life depends on constant connectivity. In these urban centers, every second counts, and the sudden silence was deafening. The Northeast, New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., became epicenters of confusion and frustration. In these cities, millions rely on digital networks for work, transit, and communication, so the outage's impact was immediate and overwhelming. Urban life ground to a halt as millions lost their digital lifelines. Subways stalled, rideshare apps failed, and businesses struggled to process transactions. People found themselves stranded, unable to access maps or contact loved ones. On the West Coast, California faced the same fate, from the bustling streets of Los Angeles to the tech-driven Bay Area. The outage didn't discriminate. It hit both major metropolises and smaller communities alike. Even resort towns like Palm Springs weren't spared. Vacationers expecting a digital escape found themselves cut off, unable to share moments or check in with family back home. The coast-to-coast impact pointed to a core network failure, not a local glitch. Experts scrambled to trace the disruption, realizing it was a systemic issue affecting the nation's digital backbone. Florida, Georgia, and Chicago also reported major disruptions. From the southeast to the Midwest, the outage rippled through cities large and small, leaving few untouched. The outage map became a portrait of modern American life, interconnected and vulnerable. Each highlighted city was a reminder of how much we depend on invisible networks to keep us moving and connected. Major cities were paralyzed, but even those outside the zones felt the ripple effect. Suburban neighborhoods and rural towns experienced delays, confusion, and a sense of isolation as the outage spread. Friends and family couldn't reach each other across state lines. Emergency calls were missed, and important messages went undelivered, deepening the sense of uncertainty. The pattern revealed a systemic problem, not isolated incidents. The nation's digital infrastructure, usually invisible, was suddenly at the center of everyone's attention. The outage was a shared national experience of digital isolation. In cafes, parks, and homes, people stared at blank screens, realizing how much their routines depended on being connected. It exposed just how fragile our most critical connections really are, and left many wondering how prepared we are for a world where the digital lights can go out in an instant. For millions, the first sign was the SOS icon, emergency calls only. Phones became useless for calls, texts, or data. Daily routines unraveled. Rideshare drivers and delivery workers lost income, families lost touch, and plans fell apart. The suddenness was jarring. One moment everything worked, the next, silence. Many thought their devices were broken, restarting and troubleshooting in vain. The real problem was invisible, the network itself. Without mobile data, navigation, payments, and communication, all failed. The SOS symbol became a stark reminder of our dependence on connectivity. The outage was a real-world test of what happens when a primary utility goes dark. As frustration mounted, Verizon finally spoke up. They confirmed a software issue was impacting wireless service, shifting blame from users' devices to the network. But details were scarce. No timeline, no technical explanation. Apologies and reassurances followed, but for many, they rang hollow. Lost income, missed appointments, and anxiety couldn't be soothed by corporate statements. Verizon directed users to their status page, ironically only accessible via Wi-Fi. Many couldn't even get updates about the outage. The disconnection was total, and the wait for answers only deepened the frustration. The outage sparked waves of anger, anxiety, and unexpected adaptation. Social media, accessed via Wi-Fi, filled with stories of missed connections and vented frustrations. Parents worried, travelers got lost, and the vulnerable felt even more isolated. Yet people adapted. Public Wi-Fi became lifelines, strangers asked for directions, and some embraced the digital quiet. It was a forced experiment in living offline, revealing both our dependence and our resilience. The outage exposed how much we rely on constant connectivity for security and peace of mind. A single glitch in a distant server had real, immediate consequences for millions. The experience was a wake-up call. Our digital safety nets are more fragile than we realize. For iPhone users stuck in SOS mode, reconnecting wasn't always automatic. Apple's troubleshooting steps offered hope. First, toggle airplane mode for 15 seconds, then turn it off to force a network search. If that failed, a full device restart was the next step. For newer iPhones, hold a volume button and the side button, power off, wait, then restart. Sometimes, updating carrier settings in Settings. General. About would prompt a fix. Keeping iOS updated also helped resolve lingering issues. These simple steps often restored service after a major outage. Knowing them turned confusion into action. A little troubleshooting knowledge made a big difference in regaining connectivity. The Verizon outage proved these disruptions are inevitable. Preparation is key. First, cultivate patience. Outages are complex and take time to fix. Diversify your access. Know where to find public Wi-Fi and consider a backup internet source. Download offline maps before traveling, so navigation works without data. Establish an emergency communication plan with family and friends. Save important numbers directly to your phone, not just in apps. Keep a portable power bank charged. Searching for a signal drains batteries fast. These small steps turn a crisis into a manageable inconvenience. Stay informed, stay connected, and be ready for the next digital silence. Preparation transforms uncertainty into confidence, even when the network goes dark. This outage wasn't just Verizon's problem. It's a warning for all carriers. AT&T, T-Mobile, and others run on equally complex, vulnerable networks. No provider is immune to software bugs, hardware failures, or cyber attacks. Outages are a systemic risk, not a brand issue. Every major carrier has faced its own crisis. Switching providers isn't a cure-all. The best defense is preparation. Know troubleshooting steps, download offline maps, and have a backup plan. These lessons are universal, no matter your carrier. The 2025 Verizon outage is a chapter in our ongoing relationship with technology. It highlights our dependence, exposes system fragility, and reminds us to build resilience. When the signals fade, resourcefulness, not just technology, keeps us connected.